I remember reading in one of your texts that you thought cottage industry was the way of the future. How do you find that sort of merging with the greater regulations in the country of Canada, or even...
Unfortunately, the cottage industry we would hope to be now can't function in the present legal premises. Now, does that mean we have to change the legal premises? That's why I'm working in the government to try to see if we can do that. Some of the cottage industry still exists and they're flying under the radar.
Right.
Let's face it, if you make some tinctures and stuff like that, who knows about it?
Right.
And now that they got here to see this video, they're going to know about it. No, but the whole concept is there's still a lot of little cottage industries, and I prefer, when I'm getting products, I prefer the person that really has the best golden seal growing on their farm to be able to get their cottage industry. But that won't have an MPN, and I have to use it as raw material to be able to go forward. But it still is the corporate world that's still driving the industry. And so I think we'll see a polarity in those two things. But it really depends on what happens in the next 4 or 5 years, how that corporate entity will be able to hold together. Because there's a good concept that that huge corporate entity will not make it through this transition field that I think is happening over the next 3 to 4 years.
Right. I think that's something really important that people aren't keeping in mind. They assume that these systems that are building themselves up, and in many ways trying to solidify themselves amidst all this change, that they seem so mighty, but really there's this feeling that there's this grassroots community effort, people working together, connecting directly with their local environments, that is the future.
And I think what you said is exactly appropriate, because whenever you get, the dinosaurs thought they were going to live forever too, you know? And when you get those great big huge things that are that stiff and that big, and should I say that gluttonous, they don't last forever. They never have. I mean, the Roman Empire died, the Mongolian Empire died, all the empires have died, and I don't care if those empires are corporate empires or whatever, they're not sustainable. And literally, they're like dinosaurs. You know, a dinosaur has a little wee brain the size of a walnut walking around in that great big 200-ton animal, and right now we have 1 or 2 CEO and these great big conglomerates of a million employees. It's actually a pretty close analogy when you think about it. Oh yeah, and they're living off the blood of the dinosaurs. I think they call that oil, don't they? So when you look at it in that thing, this is not sustainable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like the thing that's been coming to my mind is almost the penthouse is mighty far from the garden. Like if you really need direct access to food and medicine, which, you know, 80% of the planet is still living that way. They tend to be who we consider to be the impoverished, but also the empowered in a lot of ways.
And they have smiles on their faces.
And they have smiles, and they have time to enjoy their day. And, you know, and I hear that from people coming over from India, and they say, you know, we have a lot here. We seem wealthy, but we have no time to enjoy it. And so I think a lot of people see the changes that might be coming and the breakdown of the system as a scary or negative thing, but I think it's really positive on this heart human level and this human earth level and this human spirit level. And
you put some really nice words together that I'd like to reflect on, because the biggest health problem I see in my clinic is people living in their head. And that's kind of like living the job of the CEO. And they don't even move into their body, so they don't even know they have a heart. And they don't even know they have feet sometimes to be able to touch the grass. So a truly healthy person should be able to walk around the grass and feel the sky at the same time. And that's literally working at the grassroots, with the center of gravity being your heart. And we don't get to see that reflected in the corporate world. It's literally what's good for this quarter's profits. And that, again, that's just not sustainable.
It's, in a way, your job is not to have a heart in a lot of ways, I think, on a corporate level. And I've heard some people make the, sort of jokingly, that the whole point of the tie is to cut off the head from the heart, right? As a symbolism, right? You know, it seems like there's a lot of people more willing to work together on things and less sort of Lone Ranger activity going on. Like, there's a lot of people networking right now.
And that's community. And I think community is almost more fifth chakra communication. But I do think we need that. We're a communal species. You know, we're a hunter-gatherer species, basically, for over 99.9% of the history of our species. We like to live in tribes. Of course, we want to think our tribe's better than the other tribe, so we might join the Blue Gang, the Red Gang, or the Lions, or the Rotary, or the NDP, or the Christians, the Muslims, whatever. We want to join groups so we feel like we're part of a group. And I do see that movement happening. And so in that process, I do see that we're going to be seeing some people that are going to be heading up movements that are of a whole new thing. And they're not really a religion anymore, because they don't have to have dogma anymore. They're kind of like a spiritual pathway into the future, where there's kind of an anarchy independence phenomena because the answer's inside of you.
Well, I liked what Luke. Feel the force. I very much liked that, what you were saying earlier about, it's almost like nature, the solution is pouring through us. The healing force,
we just have to learn how to read.
We just need to learn how to read and get out of the way in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, how do we get out of the way? So I was really inspired by what you were saying about what you were doing out on your farm in Alberta. It was a sustainable living project, or what was that?
We decided, and it partly came around from several reasons. There was a bunch of lectures coming through talking about this, and we're saying, can it be lived? Can you have a sustainable lifestyle in Canada? You go, well, dang, yes. The pioneers did it. The First Nation people did it. Why can't we do it with all our technology? This should be a snap for us. And so we put on a course that lasted, I can't remember exactly how many. It's videotaped, so I guess I can go back. It's probably about 13 weeks. It started in the spring, went to the fall. And we got together for a weekend every month as a group of people, and we literally planted things in the garden. We planted the seeds, we grew them up, learned all the techniques of, happy bugs and bad bugs and wheat pesticides and all those kind of things, and composting. And each season we would take each part of things, like we would harvest things, so we'd always make a medicine. We'd always do maybe some canning or some drying or preserving and stuff like that to make enough food for the end of the season. And the group's goal was, can they make it through the winter on their own produce and stuff like that? And so our farm made it for the whole year without having to go to the supermarket. I must admit, we went to the supermarket twice to get some rice cakes, or actually corn thins and almond butter, because we wanted the crunchy feeling. But we were very sustainable. And at the end of it, we still had 6 months worth of food. So it wasn't a completely 100-foot diet, but 80% of it was a 100-foot diet that we could create on our farm. I mean, there was a big salmon run that year, so of course we took 30 salmons and we canned them and smoked them and jerkied them. We did all that kind of stuff, and we still got salmon from that. We did a lot of buffalo. We made buffalo jerky. We made pemmican. We made all those kind of things. So we took things that are local. Just about a mile away from me, there's a buffalo ranch. So I traded a bunch of buffalo and traded some lambs and traded some chickens and stuff like that, various medicines and treatments that I could do.
So the trading worked right.
There was a very much of a bargaining. I got this one old cowboy that's just down the way, and he says, got a little problem with my ticker. My heart's not working very good. And I was looking out in that field, and you need to renew it. I think it's 12 truckloads of dirt to fix my heart.
Talk about grounding.
Yeah, sure, come on down, right? And so we did it, So it's really nice to be able to work with the community and start bargaining with these good old boys, these old cowboys. And, he came, he says, a couple years before, and he says, I knocked off a couple goose the other day and I smoked them. I thought you'd really like them. And you want to try some of this goose jerky? And I says, yeah. I says, oh, by the way, I got gout. Can you tell me about my gout? So he comes and baits you with a little bit of smoked goose breast jerky. Canadian goose, eh? And that's kind of fun. That's part of community. That's part of you. You got some people who got your back in that case, and they know you've got their back. And that's something that we're really missing in our society. So no wonder we have autoimmune disease and we think we have to fight everything ourselves.
What was the book I saw? I think it might have been the Biology of Transcendence, but there was a study done on the heart, and there was this one town in the States where they couldn't figure out why there was no heart disease. And the diet was like the same, everything, like there was no factor that was out of place, except that it was a community that had virtually up and left Italy. All together, intergenerational, plopped themselves down in America, and had this tribe basically where people would walk in the house, help themselves to your milk in the fridge, say good morning. It was the way it was.
It was a community.
There's
a very famous community, a very famous study, and I would like that for be in the future. Yeah. Of course, I'm getting into those ages that are retirement, not that I'm ever going to retire, but you're getting into the age where community seems much more attractive to me in lots of ways. But I think that is the most sustainable thing. Right. So you literally have the tinker, the sailor, the tailor. Having those various people do their phenomena that they're good at, and you trade with them. Right. We feel better in a tribe. And so, and is that tribe global? Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Is that tribe through the internet? Is that the nervous system of these things? Why not? Right. So it doesn't mean we have to go into the dark ages, or we have to go back into some kind of pagan rituals, or we have to have some really high bishop rituals or stuff like that. I think we can join those things with our modern community, right, and the high tech that we have now.
It's on the best of both, really, isn't it?
Why not?
Yeah, it sounds like evolution. Yeah. So, now, you just mentioned the, the nervous system, and I think like what I'd like to talk a little bit about is just what you perceive happening on the planet right now. I know you talked a little bit about the noosphere, basically this idea that the Gaia, the mind of the planet, is developing something that is really quite new to our time.
And I do really think that that's what's happening. Gaia, Earth, Ashti, Puchamama, Pachamama, whatever you want to call it, it's going through an evolutionary process, and we're invited along if we're good enough. So the model that I like to use for this is one that comes out of epigenetics of biology. We now know the driving force of biology is not the DNA, it's the epigenetics of the receptor sites in the outside of the cell membrane. And this is a morphic field. It's a fractal universe we live in. So let's just think of the Earth as a one-cell organism. The nucleus is the iron crystal core at the middle, okay? And the cell membrane is the Earth. And we're receptor sites on the membrane of the Earth. And so are the trees, and so are the dinosaurs and stuff like that. Obviously, the dinosaurs weren't very effective receptor sites. And so, out of the pool. If we're good receptor sites, if we can perceive the information and transfer it to Gaia, we get accepted as receptor sites in this transition. And the trees and the plants and the flowers and the animals and stuff like that. So literally, we're not necessary for Gaia's evolution. We're only necessary as a receptor site if we're really effective. And you can only be a good receptor site if you're communicating with your feet. And your head.
It's like any.
So it's the same kind of phenomena. Right. So I'm literally saying that this evolutionary process is morphed in a one-cell organism, or every cell in our body. I mean, let's face it. We have over 75 trillion cells in our body being able to cooperate for most part. Right. That's called us. Right. So you would think 7 billion people could cooperate on a planet as a community. So I kind of see that being the role that we're moving towards in this evolutionary thing of Gaia. Because it's its evolution, it's the sun's evolution, it's our solar system's evolution. Right. And if we're good enough, we can go along for the ride.